What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dimmy Reads Comics. Today we're going to do a review of Hellboy Library Edition Volume 6. And this does have the hardcover with the, that cloth material that everything gets stuck to. But anyway, it is published by Dark Horse Books. It does have, there we go, beautiful sewn binding. Dark Horse always has beautiful sewn binding. This does have 376 pages, and I want to say it collects the Storm and the Fury and another one, but it actually collects two different, or I'm sorry, not two, give me a second. There it is. So this first, technically almost half of the book, it is the Storm and the Fury, but then after that, it collects short stories, Hellboy in Hell, double feature of Evil, The Sleeping and the Dead, The Bride of Hell, The Whittier Legacy, and Buster Oakley Gets His Wish. And then there's side notes and afterward sketchbook. Now give me a second. There we go. For The Storm and the Fury, it is by Mike Mignola and Duncan Fegredo. Colored by Dave Stewart. Lettered by Clem Robbins. Introduction by Glenn David Gold. And edited by Scott Ali. And the rest of the stories is by Mike Mignola, Richard Corben, Kevin Nowlan, Scott Hampton, and you can actually see the art changes from time, from the stories because of all the different people that worked on it. Colored by Dave Stewart, Kevin Nowlan, lettered by Clem Robbins and Kevin Nowlan, and edited by Scott Ali. It looks like Scott Ali actually did all the editing for all the books. Now, I don't know how I'm really going to do this. I know in my last video, I was asking questions, and I don't know if you guys pay attention to this. I was asking questions of the last story that was actually in the book, which was The Wild Hunt. I read The Wild Hunt, and the questions that I was asking about Hellboy and the sword, what sword it is, it explains it in The Wild Hunt. So I did read it. It's just, I was asking that to see if people watch my channels. And I don't know if I want to do that or not. But anyway, for now, the next story, The Storm and the Fury, is an exact continuation from The Wild Hunt. And there's going to be kind of spoilers of it a little bit from the story of The Wild Hunt into this one. I can't really talk about the Storm and the Fury much because spoilers at the end. There is a big climactic fight between a certain individual, a witch, one of the greatest, most dangerous witches, gets kind of like something into her, and there's a big climactic fight between that and Hellboy, and that's kind of like the solo run of Hellboy-ish. And so there's spoilers with that, so I can't really talk about that. But I'll talk about a little bit about the other short stories in this. So, yeah, let's go ahead and crack this open and see what you guys think. Alrighty, guys, so let's go ahead and crack this open. This was an amazing book. Like, everything came into play in this. Everything that was going on, the little side stories that was going on in the main stories of Hellboy, it all came in full circle in The Storm and the Fury. And it was just so amazing. So anyway, here's the end page with Hellboy like the other ones. Here's Hellboy and the snake. Hellboy Library Edition Volume 6. The Storm and the Fury. And then The Bride of Hell, which is actually not just The Bride of Hell. It's just a whole bunch of little short stories. But The Storm and the Fury. There's the people that worked on it, like I said earlier. There's the introduction. There's Hellboy with his sword. Like I said, I was, talking about when does he get his sword, this and this and that. It explains how he gets his sword, actually. And what that sword is from. Chapter 1. I don't know how many chapters I'm going to try to, go into before spoiler. But anyway, in Chapter 1, we're in England still. As you can see here. There's a couple people talking right here. Now, what was going on in The Wild Hunt is this witch. Man, see, like, this is all spoiler, but this certain witch came to life. Certain individuals brought her from the pit, brought her back to life, I guess you can say, and gave her full power. when that started happening, Hellboy and another person, you'll see the girl here, they're kind of talking back and forth. Hellboy kind of gets sent to this place, and they start talking to him about him being the rightful heir to Excalibur, the sword. And when that happened, the other witch that I was telling you guys about, she is building an army to take out Earth, technically. And because of that, Hellboy needs to get the sword, and I guess all the knights from way back in the day from King Arthur, he needs to take the sword and command the dead knights. And so these are all the dead knights kind of coming back to life. And kind of, I guess you can say, kind of meeting up. And Hellboy knows this is going on already, but he doesn't tell the father or the police. And he's there with this girl right here. This girl, by the way, so way back in, I don't even know what volume it was, but it was the corpse, where he was kind of holding a corpse. He made a deal with one of the imps or a demon that if he dug this, or if he took this corpse and buried it, that they would get the baby back. Well, she's the baby. She is that baby from way back then. So anyway, they're at this church. They see what's going on. They don't really say much to the police officer or the priest, and they kind of just leave. They get in the car. They're like, so where are all these like dead knights gonna be meeting up at, And it's funny because he's like, yeah, I wish there was like a unicorn or like a talking dog to tell me this stuff. But so they're kind of talking back and forth a little bit about when he left the BPRD, when he went to Africa, when he went to the ocean and fought the bog rush. He kind of goes into detail a little bit about all his kind of adventures, how he was drinking with sailors, his run-in with the Hecate and the Iron Thing, him being, like I said, with the pirates with Blackbeard. Yeah, he just goes into a lot of detail and how he's been drinking a lot and who he was staying with. He was like, I wish I would have never taken the invitation to the Wild Hunt, which is the previous story. So she asked him what he did with the sword. And at first he actually left the sword behind, but eventually he goes back and gets it. And now they have it in the back of a car, wrapped up in the towel, and they're driving. While they're driving, though, Hellboy keeps seeing this old man right here. And cool. When they're driving, they see this big monster right here. It hits the car. They go into like this big old... They pretty much crash. There's a big accident. He gets out and starts fighting that big monster. Eventually, that big monster, who it is. So the big witch, the big bad dangerous witch I was telling you guys about in the Wild Hunt, that pig thing was letting out, one certain creature came up to her and was like, here, I'm giving you this crown, and I want you to, my boss, he couldn't come, but he wants you to have this this crown. She pretty much touched him and was like, I want you to turn this crown into 3 ravens and make me a crown of the ravens, which, she gave the names of the ravens, and I want you to kill your master. And he did that, and when he came back and gave her the crown and killed the monster, that big witch turned this guy into like this big mean monster looking thing, demon, and that's who Hellboy's fighting. There's that pig thing I was telling you guys about. He's the one that let out that queen, by the way, that witch queen. It's kind of weird. It's weird right here because he's running away because he knows what he did was wrong, and he lands on the grave of Merlin, and Merlin pretty much curses him into not being able to die until the end of the world, which is kind of funny. So anyway, in chapter 2, we get a little bit of explanation of how this witch right here, they call her Nemu. She pretty much seduces Merlin, gets all his secrets, and goes out and tells the people about it. She gets a big following, but people don't they don't like what she's doing, and they kind of betray her, cut her into pieces, put her in the box and into that big pit. And so here's that little, hedgehog thing that I was telling you guys about. What he did, he killed his master and made it that big old, or made the crown of 3 ravens, and that's what Hellboy's fighting. And Merlin's like, you know what? This is all your fault because of your want for revenge on Hellboy. This is what's, what it's come down to. This is what's happening. Queen Witch Nemu is doing all this stuff because of you, and he kind of regrets it. And like I said, he puts a curse on that pig. But now that the queen is full up, repowered, restored, she got her full powers back. She pretty much unleashes a big old storm fury on the world, and she lets out a whole bunch of demons on the world. And that's pretty much what happens right here throughout this whole story. And see, here's the queen right here with the ravens. So eventually, after the fight with Hellboy and that big monster, they end up at this like little cabin that just kind of seems out of nowhere. They go in, they kind of dry off, and they kind of have a heart-to-heart. Hellboy and the girl, they have a heart-to-heart to the point where they actually give each other a kiss. But they have a heart-to-heart about what Hellboy needs to do next. And Hellboy decides that he doesn't want to take his place, rightful place with Excalibur and become the monster that he is supposed to be. So he wants to do it his own way. He leaves the sword with her. And, while he does that, he goes out, he leaves, he goes and finds, he tries to find the witch Nemu, the big queen Nemu. This is kind of like a big reflection of him trying to be a good person. And the callback to Lobster Johnson's awesome. Here's the undead the undead knights. Oh no, yeah, it's the undead knights right here. Or they're undead? No, they're dead knights, but they came back. So the dead knights need somebody to kind of rule them, I guess you can say, a leader. And what's weird is when I'm gonna kind of just flip through this whole story now. I don't want to give too much more of this, but Hellboy leaves Excalibur with this girl right here, Alice. That's her name, Alice. I don't know why I couldn't remember her name. We get this backstory of this guy, and for some reason, this guy is, he's lived a long time. He was supposed to die in battle. He didn't. He had this like angel witch come after him, and he's lived a long time. And eventually, he's still alive, and Alice gives that Excalibur to him, and he's the one that leads the knights to the demon monsters, to the demon army that Queen Nemu has raised. And while that's going on, like, England is getting destroyed, the world is getting destroyed, and Hellboy needs to find a way to the castle to destroy Queen Nemu. And while he does that, before he does that, he doesn't know how to get there, so he crossed paths. See, this is that heartfelt kiss I was telling you guys about. He crossed paths with a certain individual that will promise him a way into the castle, but in return, he needs to do something for her. And who is this person? The Baba Yaga comes back. He pays his debt to the Baba Yaga. He took her eye a long time ago, and he pays his debt. And because he pays his debt, she pretty much, I guess, helps him go to the castle. So he takes his eye out, gives it to her, and while the demons and stuff are all, kind of praising the Queen Nemu and things like that, people are like, oh, some witches see the one-eyed person, and they're like, oh, it has to be Odin, it has to be Thor, but it's, see, right here, but it's not. It's actually Hellboy. He's going up to the castle where he's going to go and fight Queen Nemu. At this point, I don't want to give anything more about what happens with her, what happens with Hellboy, what happens with Alice, nothing else, because it's all spoilers. But I will say this, the Agdru Jihad, the seven-headed dragon thing that we've always been hearing about in the whole story, that comes into play big time. And so that's all I want to say about this story, because the rest of it's all spoilers. So that being said, guys, I'm going to flip to The Bride of Hell, which is actually a whole bunch of short stories. The first one being Hellboy in Hell. I'm going to keep my finger right here a little bit so I can kind of double back. But this one's kind of a short, interesting. They're all short stories. And they're all the time when, back in, 1982, 1992, where Hellboy is still technically with the BPRD. And he's out there with Ape Sapien. He tells them a story of, because Hellboy's been here before. He was helping some luchadors hunt down some monsters. And one of the brothers, because there was 3 luchadors, one of the brothers gets kidnapped from something. He becomes this, like, what do they call it? Komozast. I think that's how you say it. And him and Hellboy fight, and it's a crazy it's a crazy short story. I enjoyed it. How, what's kind of crazy about it is Hellboy fighting alongside wrestlers. It was kind of weird, but after that whole thing with the brother turned to a demon, Hellboy defeating him, they kind of disbanded, and the wrestlers kind of went on their own ways. But it kind of tells you right here how the brother got taken, I guess you can say. Kamazast. That's what he turns into right there. Like I said, there's a big old fight with it. And then, like I said, I told you what happens. He defeats the Kamazats, the bat, whatever it is. And I guess you can say that brothers don't really forgive him, so they kind of go their own way. And Hellboy kind of turns into a drunk even more than he was already. And that's kind of the story of that. So the next story, Double Features, is kind of interesting. It's funny because there's like a whole bunch of like dead people, demons, or ghosts right here watching movies. And I think these are supposed to be the movies that they're watching. But these movies are actually kind of cool. You got this guy telling Hellboy a story about how his house is haunted. He kind of tricks Hellboy into going to his house. They're at the house. Supposedly this guy... So he gets this house. He doesn't even inherit it. It's gifted to him. This house in Kansas. This house is haunted. There's a room where this guy pretty much takes random people and puts them in there, and they all die. And every single time that happens, the house rewards this guy. So he takes Hellboy in there because he wants to get more rich, I guess you can say. When that happens, Hellboy is in there. He finds out that the painting of this guy is what's causing all this kind of thing. Kind of a ghost, apparition, demon thing. Hellboy's in there, and this guy's like, well, what do I get in return? A big old block of gold. Kind of kills the guy, and Hellboy gets set free. That's one story. The House of Sebek is another interesting story. There's this pretty much a guy that is at this museum. He's, I guess you can say, praying to the old gods of Egypt. Hellboy kind of goes after him after fighting some mummies, which is kind of weird. And I guess supposedly Egyptian gods don't like when you go into certain temples and don't pray to that specific god, because when you do that, they get upset, and that's what happened in this. So Hellboy didn't even have to do anything except fight for some mummies, because the guy that was praying to the gods, trying to be almighty and powerful, was praying to the wrong god in the wrong temple, and that god got mad and took care of business. That's it with that one. The Sleeping and the Dead has to do with ghosts, or I'm sorry, not ghosts, vampires. It's a story of two sisters one turned vampire, and this guy, two sisters and the brother. The brother's been kind of looking out for these two sisters. One's been taken, turned into a vampire, and the other one's been taken and turned into like this humongous monster. Like supposedly a whole bunch of crazy things have been done to her. Hellboy follows one of the vampires, Kate, and follows her to the house where the guy explains everything about the ghosts, or I'm sorry, about the vampires, how they've been around England, how there was a treaty, how supposedly the vampires were pretty much making other people vampires, but putting them in graves, and would eventually raise them from the dead and actually be vampires when the time came. And so the guy leads, and also he tells him about the main vampire there. So the guy of the house, the old guy, leads Hellboy to a certain room, but tricks him and sends him to the other sister. in the basement kind of thing. And this is where this girl right here, and this is where Hellboy kind of has a fight with her for a while. Eventually, the fight is kind of stalemated, and what ends up happening is throughout their fight, they create a hole in the wall, and this little girl gets kind of released from her prison, and she goes after her people, the vampires that kind of did her dirty, which is the main guy. I guess not really dirty, but that did all the horrible things to her. And a whole bunch, yeah, this story was kind of interesting, but I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of the vampire thing. Some people from the BPRD show up. They fight vampires, dead vampire, like zombie vampires, and they don't win, but they survive because eventually the way the main vampire gets killed is by that little girl, and that's kind of the end of the story. So I don't want to give too much more about that. How it goes, because it's a very interesting story. The Bride in Hell is kind of interesting, actually. I didn't see that twist coming. Supposedly, this girl was lost. Hellboy goes after her. When he goes after her, he finds her. He sees some things are going on. She's captured. There's ritual happening. He helps her. He pretty much saves her. Takes her to like these holy grounds. Goes after a creature of the night that's been kind of taking Templars, knights, I guess you can say. So like, it was a weird kind of. It went back to the Knights of Templar type of thing. But at the end of the day, or at the end of the story, not the end of the day, at the end of the story, there was this big twist of Asmodeus was actually there. This is Asmodeus actually, and that girl wasn't actually kidnapped. She was the bride of Hell, the bride of Asmodeus. So I'm not going to tell you guys how it ends. I did want to tell you the first couple of stories, but I'm not going to tell you how this one ends. This one's very interesting. I enjoyed it so much. The little backstory of Asmodeus, freaking amazing. This girl, she's horrible. Let's just put it that way. Let's move on to the next story. You guys don't really need to read, or don't need me to spoil that for you guys. So, I skipped it too much. The Whittier legacy was kind of interesting, but it was a short story. Hellboy is kind of here in this house in June 20. It doesn't even tell you the year. Yes, it does. It tells you he's at this place. This one was kind of a stupid story. I didn't really like it. He's there. There's supposedly with the Whittier legacy, they've been dead, passed away for a while, but supposedly some of them have gone missing from their graves. This guy right here has dug him up. He's part of the Whittier legacy, and he's gonna light this candle. I didn't really like this one this much because it had to do with like aliens and space. There was like this space alien that came in, but you have to have this coin for protection. He doesn't have it. Hellboy doesn't do anything, and so that's why I didn't like that story so much. The last story of this, Buster Oakley Gets His Wish, is very stupid. I did not like it. It was haha funny, but it was dumb, in my opinion, because you're so used to seeing Hellboy fighting monsters, demons, ghosts, vampires, ghouls, imps, things like that. This is an actual alien story. Some kids are doing some black magic, devil worshipping stuff, and then 18 hours later, some things are happening. The locals are like, cows are gone missing. This is what's happening to the cows. Hellboy stays back a little bit because things like this are happening at night. He does a little bit of investigation, and he sees. What's funny is he sees the ghost of the cows, which he does see the paranormal, right? But he gets beamed up to an alien spaceship, and those kids that he's kind of been looking for, he finds one of them, which is kind of weird, and he's been turned into a cow-looking thing. He fights aliens alongside the cow. The aliens start losing, and they kind of send the cow person and Hellboy back to Earth, or back on Earth, and that's about it. I don't want to get too much more about that, but then later on we see that the kids are kind of worshiping the devil thing again, and this is their sign. it was a weird story. I wasn't a big fan of it. So overall, this is kind of the end kind of story for the solo run and for Hellboy. But there's one more actually, like, library edition, Hellboy in Hell. That's all I'm going to say about that, because if I say that, then I'm going to spoil it. So yeah, there's one more library edition after this. Afterwards, and then you got sketches. The sketches is kind of a lot, so I'm going to kind of flip through these kind of quick, guys. And girls. Guys and girls. People who watch this. I don't want to just single out people. I love these sketches. How they start from this to more detailed to like actual black and white. Then they start adding color to it. Oh, man. Just the process of how they get it done. Look at that. Oh, man. Hellboy missing in his eye. Ooh, that came full circle to him. I kind of like that Hellboy had that nice kiss with Alice, even though it kind of seemed a little bit weird, though. Like, he knew her as a baby growing up, and I mean, she was old enough, you know, right? But like, it's still kind of weird, though. I don't know. That was a little weird. That Hellboy in Mexico was awesome. The luchadors and him fighting the Kamazosts. Kamazosts? That's how you say it? These are so amazing to me. These next few ones, like, look at these. Alrighty, guys, so this is the back pages. Like I said, I'm going to finish up reading the Hellboy series with Hellboy in Hell Library Edition, which is technically Volume 7. As far as the BPRD, I don't think I'm going to end up buying them, but I am going to be reading them online. I am going to read online Hellboy in the BRPD, and I don't think... I might read Abe Sapien and Lobster Johnson, but as far as Witchfinder, no. As far as Joe Golem, no. Baltimore, no. Excuse me, and then short stories and prose, probably not either. I just kind of want to get the full immersion of Hellboy in the BPRD, you know, Ape Sapien and Lobster Johnson. Aside from that, I know the Mignola verse is huge, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to read the rest of it. So anyway, here's the end page of this, again, with Hellboy. And that's the end of the book. So, all right, guys, next, ladies and gents, whatever you guys want to call it. All right, everybody. All right, everybody, so let's go ahead and do the rating for this book and see what you guys think. Alrighty, guys, so to do for the quick rating, but before we do the quick rating, let's do the recap of this. This is Hellboy Library Edition, Volume 6, hardcover with that like cloth material on it, which sucks. It is published by Dark Horse Books, 376 pages. It does have sewn binding, and before I go any further, it collects the story of The Storm and the Fury, and then Hellboy in Mexico, double feature of Evil, The Sleeping and the Dead, The Bride of Hell, The Whittier Legacy, and Buster Oakley Gets His Wish. So, what do I want to give this as a rating? Well, man, this one's a hard one. Because not only did it mix, like for Volume 1, I gave it a solid 4. Volume 2, because of the short stories, I gave it a 3. And then Volume 3, I gave it a 4 because it only had 2 big stories. And then Volume 4, I gave, you know, a solid 4 because I had 2 big stories. But this one's a little bit different. This one has a big story in the beginning, which I'm going to give a 4. But the later part, I wasn't a big fan of, and I only want to give it 3. So what do I give it in overall? That's a hard one. Like, I want to give it a 3.5, but I don't like giving books 0.5s. I think I want to give this a 4, but not a solid 4, like a low 4. because of the short stories at the end. Because I absolutely loved the first story. It was, you know, long. It was a conclusion of a lot of things. So that's why I wanted to give it a 4. But man, it's gonna be a low 4. I'm gonna give it a 4. I am gonna give it a 4. I just didn't like how part of it was like a whole story, and then the other half was like short stories. I wasn't a big fan of that, guys. I really wasn't. I do like how it wraps up the conclusion story of Hellboy, but it's not quite wrapped up yet. I'm just kind of putting it to where it wraps up a lot of the story, not all of it though. The final battle was amazing. I do want to say that the witch Nemu, I know she's like the biggest witch, but man, like we know nothing about her in any other book, and then they just finally kind of brought her in randomly. It would have been nice if the final battle was like against the Baba Yaga, because she, you know, Hellboy and the Baba Yaga had like this big like clashing all the time. Him or Rasputin at some point, but them introducing Nemu just kind of randomly and her being the big bad of the story of Hellboy, I wasn't the biggest fan of that. So I don't know, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, if you guys liked that or not. Let me know if you guys liked any of these stories. Excuse me, any of the previous stories that I've read in volumes 1 through 5. I know there's a lot of short stories, but I'm sticking with me liking more the big main story arc of Hellboy. So let me know in the comments down below which ones you guys like most, which one you guys didn't. Let me know if you guys collected these in library editions, trade paperbacks, in the box set, or in omnibus format. Like I said, the next time I read this, because I'm definitely going to give it a reread. I just don't know if I'm going to do a reread of the library editions again, or if I want to pick up the omnibus and read it in chronological order, if that makes sense. Because the omnibus does come in chronological order, whereas these, they pretty much put them out when, I guess, the publishing date of them came out. So some people enjoy reading it when they came out. Some people enjoy reading it in chronological order. I don't really know which way I'm going to go with it. So I might pick up... No, see, because if I pick up the omnibus, there'd be no need for me to have these library editions. So, and these library editions are amazing. You just get so full immersion because the book's so nice, so big, and they're not that expensive. One of them was. I'm gonna call it my most expensive one. But anyway, guys, all that being said, I hope you guys liked the review. If you guys did, leave a like in the comments. Like I said, let me know what your favorite story was. Also, let me know if you guys have these in library, omnibus, trade paperback, or the box sets in the comments down below. After this, we do have one more volume. It's called Hellboy in Hell. And then after that, we're moving on to, I kind of messed this up last time. We're moving on to the, what is it called? The autumnal. It's kind of a weird one because it's almost like autumn, but it's not autumn. I always thought it was autumnal. It might be autumnal, but I call it the autumnal. It's weird. Anyway, we got that one. Anyway, after that, it's Monica, and then after Monica, we're gonna dive into some EC archives. After a few EC archives, we're gonna be doing some Watchmen, and then kind of go from there. So be on the lookout for that stuff, guys. For everybody that's been liking, watching, subscribing, commenting, I appreciate it, guys. I know some people don't like some people might not even like Hellboy, so they'll skip the video. I understand that's not for everybody. So everybody that has been watching, I appreciate it. If you guys haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps build my channel up. All that being said, guys, take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you guys on the next one.